Hello everybody, there are so many cameras to choose. What is the right camera for me? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hey everybody, David Paskin here, Rabbi David, your Torah tech guy, and welcome to Torah Tech Tips, where I look forward to giving you some great tech for your great Torah. So today I wanted to talk with you a little bit about cameras and what is the right camera for you. Now, cameras are incredibly subjective because different people have different looks that they're going for. So I'm not going to suggest any specific models of cameras, but I want to talk about three big categories of cameras that you may want to consider for your situation. I should also say, by the way, that even in one facility, what you're doing in any one given spot may determine what kind of camera you want to have there. That is to say, you may choose to have one type of camera in your sanctuary, another type in a library or a social hall or an office or something like that. So let's jump right into it. The three types of cameras are webcams, mirrorless or DSLR cameras, and PTZ, pan, tilt, zoom cameras. We're going to talk a little bit about each of these, some of the pros, some of the cons, and then I'll share a couple extras at the end there. So let's start with webcam. All right, so what are the pros and the cons of using a webcam? Well, they are stupid simple. USB plug and play, they're simple to use, and they're incredibly cost effective. You can get a nice Logitech C920, which is what this one is up here, for, I don't know, what is it, a little over $100. There are some really nice HD 1080p webcams that you can purchase nowadays. They're not going to be fantastic because the sensors in these webcams are really tiny comparatively to other cameras, and so you're not going to get clean, crisp, beautiful images, but for a lot of folks, they're just good enough. Now, a couple of the cons, talked about picture quality. Another is zoom. So if you're going to be using this at any more than, I don't know, what, 10 feet away, most of these webcams don't zoom at all. And if you start to use software zooming, you can get a lot of pixelation, a lot of ickiness in your picture. So webcams are best used 2, 3, 4 feet away from you. Has to be pretty close to the computer. So let's jump into a mirrorless or a DSLR camera. That's what I'm using now. I have a Sony a6400. I upgraded to this, I guess, early in the fall. I was also just using a webcam. Then I actually moved to a video camera, a camcorder, and then I finally moved up to a mirrorless camera. So what are some of the pros and cons? Well, I don't know if you can see, but I think the picture quality is outstanding. Now, bear in mind, you have to have a good lens also. It's not just the camera, but the picture quality is really fantastic. Zoom is a lot better on these. Not necessarily at huge distances, but if you have a good lens, you can get some decent zoom on these cameras. And you can plug them in and use them as webcams. Most of these manufacturers, Canon, Sony, released firmware updates that allow you to just plug these cameras into your computer and use them as webcams. I would actually recommend against that in most cases, and that's because the firmware can sometimes be a little wonky. There are adapters or video encoders that you can use that takes the HDMI signal out of your camera, turns it into USB, and then you plug that into the tuchus of your computer, and you can use that. I use the Camlink, which is a really solidly built, good video sort of encoder to get from HDMI to USB. But being able to use these cameras, these DSLR and mirrorless cameras, as webcams is really, really powerful, and also for streaming as well. What are some of the cons of these? Well, they can get a little pricey. The Sony a6400 runs around, I think, $800, and that's without a lens. So you are going to be spending more than you would on a webcam with one of these cameras. Hopefully, it will be more versatile for you. Depending on your lens, you will have a limited zoom. So you want to bear in mind that if you're just getting the lens that comes with the camera, you might have a little bit of zoom, but the more you zoom, again, once you get past the optical zoom and you get into sort of a digital zoom, you're going to end up with ickiness in your picture. So bear with that, bear that in mind. With a mirrorless or DSLR camera, you fundamentally have a static image. That is to say, you can't pan, tilt, or zoom much. Some of these cameras do have apps that allow you to do a little bit of that, but again, I'm not sure I would try and do that in a camera that isn't designed to do that. The cabling can be a bit tricky with these, right? I mentioned before that to use this as a webcam or to stream on your computer, you actually have to have some sort of interface to plug it into. You can use a cam link, as I mentioned. There are certainly cheaper options out there. You could use an ATEM Mini, which I've talked about in the past, an ATEM Mini Pro. So there are different ways to get the feed from your camera, a clean feed from your camera, into your computer or onto your stream. But sometimes you have to use different tools to make that happen. And you can't run really long cables with these. You're running HDMI, unless you're going to get all fancy and do HDMI over, what's it called? Fiber, which I don't know anything about. You can't really run very long cables. So if you're thinking about getting a mirrorless camera and putting it in the back of your sanctuary, that may not be the way to go. And it can require additional hardware to connect to the computer, which I talked about before. So we've got webcams, we've got mirrorless or DSLR cameras, and the last option is PTZ. So what is a PTZ? A PTZ camera is a pan, tilt, zoom camera, and there are lots of pros to a pan, tilt, zoom camera. You can really mount it pretty much anywhere. A lot of these PTZ cameras, the higher end ones, have 20 times, 30 times zoom, which will get you a really nice zoom in. So if you want to put this in the back of your sanctuary and then zoom into the Rabbi or the Cantor or the Torah, you can do that with a pan, tilt, zoom, a PTZ camera. You can remote control the pan, tilt, zoom, so a lot of them will have a joystick, but you can also use an app on your iPad or your iPhone. There are also integrations into other programs that will allow you to control that pan, tilt, zoom. If you're using another program, oftentimes with it, like a camera switcher, you can set up scenes. So you can have, one scene is when your PTZ is zoomed in on the Rabbi, and then another one is when it's zoomed in on you, and then you can just press those scenes and the camera will do all of that movement for you. So a PTZ can be really, really powerful. You can also do power over Ethernet, and you can send the signal over Ethernet. So that means that you can place these at a much greater distance from your computer than you might be able to do with the DSLR or mirrorless, or certainly with a USB webcam. What are some of the cons? Well, they tend to be pretty expensive. The good ones like PTZ Optics, they're going to run you well over $1,000. And they can require additional hardware to connect to a computer. So depending on the type that you get, it may have HDMI out or SDI out. You may need to get a converter box so that you can send that via Ethernet, which is those blue, the blue cables that come out of the wall and plug into your router or your computer. That's Ethernet. So you might end up having to get additional hardware or cabling in order to run these and make them work well. But once they're installed and they're working well, you can get a beautiful 4K image, a really high quality image, which allows you to really zoom in tightly and pan and tilt and do all those wonderful things all remotely with a PTZ camera. Now, there are a couple of other things that you might want to consider. There is a new I think it's new, at least it's new to me, called the OBSBot. OBSBot, OBSBOT, I guess? Yeah, OBSBOT. And I don't have a picture of it for you, but the OBSBot is a mini PTZ camera. So it's actually a webcam, but it's got PTZ functionality built in. So you can put this right on top of your computer, or you can mount it to a tripod, and you can control it with the app that comes with it. You can pan, tilt, zoom. It even has facial tracking, sort of like the Facebook, what's the thing called? The portal, the Facebook portal, where it'll track your face. So as you move, the camera will move with you. You can zoom in by making an L and zoom out by making another L. You can stop facial tracking by going like this. It recognizes all those movements, which is really pretty cool. So these are all, could be another wonderful wonderful option for you to consider. It's called the OBSBot. I think it's obsbot.com. I could be wrong about that. Another thing that a lot of people have been talking about is called the Owl, or the Owl Cam. If you look at Owl Cam, the Owl Cam is I could probably bring these up for you. I didn't think about bringing it up for you before, but the Owl Cam is basically let me see if I can find it for you. Owl camera, here we go. Let me bring you in to share the screen with you. Let's see. So this is the Meeting Owl Pro, they call it. And what's cool about this is that it's got cameras around the outside, it's got microphones around the outside, a mic array and a camera array. You put it in the middle of the table, and then it will smartly figure out who's speaking, turn that microphone on, turn that camera on. So if you're doing, for example, a hybrid education session where you have some people in person, some people watching digitally, this might be a really nice option. You put it right in the middle of the table, it will automatically switch the camera and the microphone to whoever is speaking. You just plug it into your computer sees it as a USB device, I believe. And then the people who are watching at home, that camera will switch automatically. So this could be a really nice option. It's a little pricey. It's about $1,000. A little more if you want to do the whole, the whole setup with there are some additional add-ons that they offer as well. So really 3 kind of categories, and I'm not including, by the way, cinema cameras and the really high-end expensive stuff, but really we're looking at webcams, simple, plug and play, but very basic and not very capable. DSLR or mirrorless cameras for a really nice shot, but you have to be aware that you can't put them so far away and they're limited in that they're a static image. And third is a PTZ, which is the most expensive option. It's also the most functional of the options. It also has its limitations. It's going to require a little extra work to get that up and running, but it really offers the most flexibility. So depending on the type of program you're running, maybe it's a service or a class, one or more of these cameras may be helpful to you, maybe exactly what you need. You may also want to look into that OBSBot and the Owl, again, depending on what you're looking for. Friends, I have links to all of this stuff over on my website. If you go to, why isn't it triggering? Where's my hello, my come see me? Oh my God, it's not working. Oh, I know why it's not working. Now it'll work. There we go. Sorry about that. I have all this information up on TorahTechGuy.com. Head over there to my gear section. I have links to all these different tools. I don't think I've linked to the Owl yet, but I do have links to most, if not all, of these tools, and you can find them there. I have apps, I have resources, I have a reopening guide. All that stuff is for you. I'm also doing a lot of trainings, a lot of work with congregations, so if there's something that I can do to help you, this isn't my daytime job. I'm just here to help and offer the little bit of knowledge that I have. So I want to thank you for joining me on Torah Tech Tips, and I want to remind you that this Friday at 1 o'clock is the first episode of Unmute. The first episode, let me see if I can bring that up. Can I bring up, do I have anything for Unmute? I don't have anything for Unmute. I don't have an overlay or anything. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. Oh well, wait, there we go. Unmute. Right over there. It's a new program that I'm doing where I'm going to be talking with, interviewing, and interacting with some of the greatest Jewish educators, and specifically how have they been sharing their learning and their work in this new digital space. So I really do hope that you'll join me for that. That's at 1 o'clock on Friday this week. We're going to be with Dr. Sandra Lilienthal. Coming up, I've got Safaria, Shalom Learning, Rabbi Menachem Creditor, Rabbi, who else? Charlie Savanor. Really just amazing. Ellen Allard, really amazing, amazing educators, Jewish educators, and artists who are going to be sharing some of their knowledge with you about how you can unmute your online experiences, digital experiences. So it was good seeing you. I hope I'll see you all again next week, Friday, and then next week on Torah Tech Tips. See you later, guys.